Most people never realize the moment they decide how rich they're allowed to become. For Arav, that moment happened quietly, on a Tuesday evening, in a cramped one-room apartment where the ceiling fan made more noise than air. The room smelled faintly of instant coffee and damp clothes. A single bulb flickered above his desk, where unpaid bills lay stacked like silent judges. Arav stared at them, not with panic, but with something worse, resignation. This is just how life is, he muttered. That sentence, simple, tired, familiar, was the invisible ceiling over his life. Arav was smart. Everyone who knew him agreed on that. Teachers had praised him. Friends asked for his help. Managers trusted him with responsibility. Yet, at 29, he was still living paycheck to paycheck, calculating grocery items down to the last coin. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't unlucky. He was careful. Careful people rarely get rich. Growing up, Arav had learned certain truths the way one learns gravity, never questioned, always obeyed. Money is hard to earn. Rich people are greedy. Be grateful for what you have. Don't dream too big, you'll only be disappointed. His father had worked 30 years at the same job, proud of never asking for more. His mother believed saving was noble suffering. Wealth, in their home, was spoken of in the same tone as danger. So Arav learned to survive, not to expand. He worked longer hours instead of smarter ones. He avoided risks. He said no to opportunities that felt too good to be true. He told himself he didn't want much anyway. And the world politely agreed. That Tuesday evening, after paying the minimum balance on his credit card, Arav opened his phone and scrolled mindlessly, videos, jokes, other people's lives passing by. Then he saw him, an old man, sitting on a simple wooden chair, speaking calmly into the camera. The caption read, "You don't become rich by working harder. You become rich by daring to think differently." Arav almost scrolled past. Almost. But something about the man's eyes, steady, amused, unafraid, made him pause. The old man said, "Most people are not poor because of lack of money. They are poor because of invisible rules they never chose." Arav felt a strange tightness in his chest. Invisible rules. The man continued. Rules like, "This is enough for me." Or, "People like me don't get rich." Or my favorite lie, "I'm not interested in money." Arav scoffed softly. "I'm not interested in money," he whispered to himself. The old man smiled, as if he could hear him. That sentence, the man said, has destroyed more potential than failure ever did. Arav's phone buzzed. Low battery warning. The video cut off. But the words didn't. That night, Arav couldn't sleep. His mind replayed moments he had dismissed before, opportunities he'd declined, ideas he'd buried, ambitions he'd downsized until they were harmless. He realized something unsettling. He had never dared to be rich. Not once. He had dared to be comfortable. He had dared to be safe. He had dared to be invisible. But rich? No. That felt arrogant, dangerous, unrealistic. And yet, a question echoed in his mind. What if the life he was living wasn't the limit, but the result of a decision he never knew he made? Part 2. The question that shook everything. The next morning, Arav noticed something strange. Nothing in his life had changed, but everything felt unstable. The same alarm rang. The same bus arrived late. The same office lights buzzed overhead. Yet behind every routine action, a quiet question hummed. Is this the best I'm allowing myself? At lunch, his colleague Ria complained about salaries, bosses, the economy, same script, different day. Arav nodded automatically, then stopped. What if this wasn't just bad luck? What if this was collective agreement? That evening, he searched for the old man's video. It took an hour. Finally, he found the account. Barely any followers, no flashy edits. Just short videos, each beginning the same way. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Arav watched one, then another, then 5 more. The old man spoke of money like it was a mirror, not a monster. Money doesn't change who you are, he said. It reveals who you were allowed to become. In one video, he posed a question that hit Arav like a slap. If tomorrow you received 10 times your income, what part of you would panic first? Arav closed the app. His chest tightened. He would panic. Not from excitement, from fear. Fear of responsibility. Fear of judgment. Fear of standing out. Fear of losing the identity of simple guy with simple needs. That scared him more than being broke. The next day, Arav did something he'd never done before. He asked for time off. Not because he was sick. Not because of family. But because he needed to think. He spent the day walking through the city, watching people. Luxury cars stopped at the same red lights as old scooters, expensive suits buying tea from the same roadside stalls. The rich weren't a different species. They were simply people who had crossed a line Arav had never even approached. By evening, his feet carried him somewhere unexpected. A small, dusty bookstore wedged between a tailor and a repair shop. He had passed it hundreds of times without entering. Inside, the air smelled of paper and patience. Behind the counter sat an old man. Not the same one from the video, but close enough that Arav laughed quietly at the coincidence. Looking for something? The bookseller asked. I don't know, Arav replied honestly. Maybe something about money. The man nodded, unsurprised. Everyone who comes here is, he said. They just use different words. He handed Arav a thin notebook, not a book. Right, the man said. Before you read anything else. Write what? The bookseller leaned closer. Answer this. If money were not a problem, who would you allow yourself to be? Arav stared at the blank pages. His mind went silent. He had goals, but they were cautious goals. Promotions. Savings. Stability. This question demanded something else. Permission. He bought the notebook and went home. That night, Arav sat at his desk, pen hovering above the page for nearly an hour. Then, slowly, painfully, honestly, he wrote. I would start my own business. I would stop apologizing for wanting more. I would invest instead of only saving. I would learn how money actually works. I would stop hiding my ambition. His hand trembled. These weren't plans. They were confessions. For the first time, Arav saw the truth clearly. He wasn't afraid of failing at wealth. He was afraid of claiming the right to try. As he closed the notebook, a strange calm settled over him. He didn't have more money. He didn't have answers. He didn't have a roadmap. But he had crossed an invisible line. He had dared, quietly, imperfectly, to imagine a richer version of himself without shame. And that single act began dismantling the ceiling he had lived under his entire life.